Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Today, we're going to be starting a new series called Deck Profile Madness. Now, this is a point at a time where in the format, I will be doing a large amount of deck profiles. So if you guys want to check out from my other stuff, you can always catch me on Twitch. Now, Twitch will be another interesting thing that I will be doing. I will be, commuting a good portion of our DevPro duels to Twitch. So if you guys wanted to find the Cali Effect playing on DevPro, Twitch would be your best option. But most importantly, let's get back to the Yang Zing deck profile, a deck that you would love to when going into time, a very synchro-centric type deck, and it has a lot of sneaky combos that a lot of people don't really seem to recognize. But let's get down to the deck profile. We're going to be running 3 copies of Swanee, 3 copies of Bayan, 3 copies of Bixie, 3 copies of Chaiwin, 3 copies of Xiaotou, 1 Tawadi, 1 Pulo, and 1 Zefranu. That's going to sum up the monsters at 18. For spells, is 3 copies of Path, 2 Forbidden Lance, 2 Dark Hole, Book of Moon, Soul Charge, and Raigeki. That's going to sum it up about 10. For traps, we're going to be running 3 Creation, 2 Mirror Force, 2 Wiretap, 2 Breakthrough Skill, Torrential, Solemn, and Skill Drain. That's going to sum up the traps at about 12. Now, the deck is very straightforward. You want to use your Yang Zing monsters to obviously synchro summon. And keep in mind, when they're destroyed by battle or destroyed by card effects, you get to cycle through another Yang Zing monster. So more often than not, you want Chaiwin to the graveyard first, because what Chaiwin does is when a Yang Zing monster that you control is destroyed, you can special summon Chaiwin to your graveyard. This sets up a lot of interesting plays because obviously you send Chaiwin to the graveyard. The next following turn, you can start crashing your Yang Zings, or if your opponent starts running over your Yang Zings even more, you special summon Chaiwin and then synchro summon. Keep in mind that you can use Yang Zing monsters effects on your opponent's turn. For example, all of the non-tuner Yang Zing monsters, except for Zefranu in this deck, have the ability to synchro summon during your opponent's main phase or battle phase. That's just something really interesting that you want to keep in mind while playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All of them search out of the deck, all of them special summon monsters out of the deck, for the exception of Zefranu. Zefranu is actually your search card. It's going to be able to fetch you a Yang Zing Creation or Yang Zing Path from your deck to your hand, so it's pretty interesting. It also fits in another great combo that this deck has. Anytime you can activate and resolve multiple copies of Yang Zing Creation, or just resolve it multiple times, the game tends to go into your favor because you can summon multiple Yang Zing monsters from your deck, setting up a plethora of synchro plays. Also keep in mind, your monsters don't necessarily have to go to the graveyard when you have Yang Zing Creation on your side of the field. Monsters just simply have to be destroyed. As you guys can see, there's a lot of destruction within this deck. The 1 copy of Torrential Tribute, the 2 copies of Dark Hole, and the Raigeki. All of those are very essential for the Yang Zing core strategy. For the exception of Raigeki, you want your monsters destroyed because it helps you set up boards. Like again, that coupled with Yang Zing Creation makes the deck just so potent and deadly to go against. Mirror Force is a very interesting aspect because more often than not, you want your monsters destroyed by battle. The only thing that I would like to say is that there's certain situations where you don't want your monsters destroyed by battle. For example, if your opponent goes into a Abyss Dweller or has Dark Lore on your side of the field, Mirror Force obviously becomes a critical card to getting rid of your opponent's cards. Another thing that Yang Zing does not like is to have their effects negated. Also to face against a barrage of back row, and that is essentially dealt with Wiretap and Forbidden Lance. Most effect negation for the except of Effect Veiler are spells and trap cards, so therefore Forbidden Lance and Wiretap definitely deal with both of those problems. There's not really much else. Soul Charge sets up the deck, or sets up your graveyard when you go through so many Yang Zing monsters. Book of Moon is for really good protection. It's just the best, one of the best cards. But there's a couple other routes you can go with Yang Zings. I've seen players play a Plant Engine, which compromises of Lone Fire Blossom Spore, Glow Up Bulb, Dandelion, and sometimes the Breeze Dragon. That's a really interesting concept. While I didn't choose it, I really think that it's nonetheless, like I said, interesting and has a lot of great plays into it. One thing that I did notice about it is that the player that's playing the Plant Engine can make Quasar and Shooting Star really easily. And to add more effects on top of it, that Shooting Star or Quasar Dragon has added bonuses, like it's unaffected by traps, it gains 500 attack, unaffected by spells, and its position can't switch, so it becomes really hard to deal with. Two other cards that you guys could really use for recursion is Masked Chameleon and Junk Synchron. While I opted out of those cards, I still feel like that they're pretty decent cards. You'll have to change up what you run synchro-wise, and that's a big portion of the deck. Another thing that I've seen people run is Fire Hand and Ice Hand. Now, the hands I do not like at all in this deck because it kind of defeats the purpose. You kind of need your normal summon, which is another reason why I don't play the plants, Masked Chameleon, or Junk Synchron. You need your summon, and you need them to be Yang-Zing monsters more often than not. The Fire Hand and Ice Hand kind of go cliche with the deck because when they're destroyed, you get their effects. Not really much else after that. For spells, you could run Black Garden, and a Black Garden build is probably going to require you to run multiple copies of Pula. Think of Black Garden kind of like a skill drain for the deck, except it doesn't negate monsters' effects. It does half all your opponent's monsters' attacks, and then you would abuse Polo to summon Yang-Zing monsters unaffected by Black Garden having their full attack. That's really good when playing a strategy such as critical as this. Now, there are staple cards such as Pot of Duality. I can't think of any other staples right now, but Pot of Duality that could be ran into the deck. I decided to exclude those because I felt that, you know, they're pretty obvious. You can pretty much run whatever you want into the deck. For traps, you could run, I've seen it run around as Powerful Rebirth and Call It a Hunted. While again, I don't really put these cards into my deck, I can see why players want to run cards like Call It a Hunted and Powerful Rebirth. They both provide revival for the deck, and Powerful Rebirth has some really interesting concepts, being able to increase the monster that you level, that you special summons level, which will allow really good synchro plays. Next would be Crush Card Virus. Because this deck really goes through the deck very fast, Jiaotou can be summoned and then Crush Card Virus, hitting your opponent for multiple cards in their hand on field. Anti-Spell Fragrance, because the deck does not have to run a complete full range of spell cards to be effective. And then Needle Sealing, because it's almost like a third Dark Hole. I didn't find it necessary, but I thought people would find necessary. Now, a lot of people are going to ask in the comments below, why not run Supply Squad? Supply Squad is a very, very bad card for Yang-Zings, and I'm going to go ahead and explain to you why. First of all, Supply Squad is a bad card overall. Anytime your opponent is destroying cards on your side of the field, they're more than likely winning the game and advancing their game state. Supply Squad doesn't really do anything except for get you draw cards that you would have to wait till your next turn to probably be able to use. Furthermore, if the opponent destroys the Supply Squad before you get at least 2 destructions off, then you're in a really bad position because Supply Squad was wasted. Ultimately, Supply Squad does not give you advantage right when it's activated, or it doesn't do anything for you until your opponent does something to you. Something that you don't want to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! By. The most important part about that is that Supply Squad is bad in Yang-Zings because you do not want to draw multiple copies of Yang-Zings. I hope that helped you debunk why you shouldn't play Supply Squad, and furthermore, it's just not that great of a card, period. I think that we're done with the main board and cards that you could play, so let's go on to the extra deck. Alright, the extra deck actually has a lot of text and things that you can do to the deck, so it's not as simple as it seems. But let's get down to it more importantly. As you can see, the 1 copy of Trish, Xiao Fang are my 9s. Xiao Fang is really good. I mean, there were times where I doubted this card, and then there were times where I made it so my opponent can't Valk me and just go for game. Really great card, not really that hard to summon. Same with Trish. Same thing for Leo. Leo is actually, as you guys don't believe, it's our out to towers. We can make it 3,500 attack, or 3,600 attack with Suani. So then it gets decreased by towers and it's still stronger. Really good card. Bills is our out to Shadows. Now, if we make Bills against a Shadow player, more often than not, it's unaffected by traps and it's 3,500 attack. I dare a Shadow player to make an out to it. As long as they're not playing Stick and Chair, which can be easily gated through an Effect Veiler or a Breakthrough skill, Bills, more often than not, you can ride Bills to your game win. Next is 2 copies of Boxia, the pivotal strategy into the deck. Boxia creates all types of locks and loops, but most importantly, it spins up to 3 to 4 cards from your opponent's side of the field, or may I say on the field, to the owner's deck. Next is 2 copies of Yazi. Now, Yazi is like the scrap dragon of the deck. It's very powerful, it can be made unbreakable, and the most important thing is that it can't be targeted. Really good when going against Burning Abyss players. Next is Goyle Guardian, the best level 6 monster in the game. Beast Lord Vulcan or Vulcan the Divine can be special summoned on your opponent's turn and then bounce cards like Creation or Skill Drain when it's unaffected by traps to bounce an opponent's card. It's really good disruption. You won't play it that often though. Armatus. This card can arguably be ran in multiple copies just because of its sheer ability to not be able or to prevent the opponent from activating card effects while it attacks or is attacked. Catastor is a really sneaky card, especially since you can make it unaffected by traps or you can give it extra boost of attack. It's just a really good card. Balmung is another card that people seem to underestimate because you can make this card indestructible by battle or prevent it from being affected by trap cards. Really good card. Next is 2 copies of Herald of Arclight, which is pivotal to the deck. I actually dropped a level 7 monster just to play 2 copies of Herald of Arclight. More often than not, your main cards that you will play are level 4s, level 8s, and level 7s, and you have plenty of those to be able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, there are quite a few Synchro monsters that you can play as opposed to playing any of these guys, and I'm going to go over them right now. The Plant Engine probably plays TG Hyper Librarian because TG Hyper Librarian is love and TG Hyper Librarian is life. Next would be Samsara Dragon of Rebirth. While I don't think this card is really good at all, a lot of people go into it because it gives them an extra monster that, you know, works when being destroyed. I still don't understand why people play it. Mistborn Colossus is probably the best level 3 Synchro, actually is the best level 3 Synchro in the game. It used to be our out to window before Tuati came, but now since we have Tuati, it's taken a backseat. That, and it's a pretty awkward level to summon. More often than not, when we have a Bixie and Chaiwan on the field, we can supply a third monster to make another Synchro play. Metaphys Horus is if you're playing more of the Pendulum build. If you're playing more Zephranu and the other Pendulum monster, then Metaphys Horus might become more towards your gearing. Black Rose Moonlight is just a really good another level 7 that you could play. Ancient Sacred Wyvern is a very iffy card, but same thing can be said for Bills. It does require you to play Chaiwan to make it, and more often than not, when you're summoning it, you're attacking for game. Clearing Single Dragon is a very underrated card coming into the next format, and I just feel that its spot hasn't been solidified just yet, but soon enough, everybody will be playing a card like Clearwing. It is actually the card that I decided to drop for the Herald for the time being. Star Eater, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure why you would play this card, but I've seen a lot of builds and I've seen a lot of people's theory behind playing it. It is an out to towers, but so is Leo at the same time, and Leo I feel is a better effect in this deck. The last card that you could play is Crimson Blader. While Crimson Blader does shut down decks like Infernoid and Synchro base decks, especially in the mirror, I feel like Crimson Blader isn't that great of a card anymore. Granted, it will become good once Synchros do come back or once Fusions do come back, but right now it's like one of those cards. Now we can get on to the combos. Yang Zings have quite a few combos to play. Unfortunately, just about every single one in a standard build requires Jiaotou to make. But that's also a good thing because we know that Jiaotou can really make some plays inside of this deck. The first combo I'm going to be telling you guys about is the Herald of Arclight Boxia lock. Now, this is actually really optimal during turn 1. It doesn't require too much setup. Let's get into the combo. It's going to require Jiaotou on the field, at least Chaiwan or Bayan in your hand. You're also going to need to have Zephranu in the deck and another Yang Zing monster. So, for example, we're going to put Bayan back to the deck, and we're just going to say we have Swanee for this combo. We're going to normal summon Jiaotou, and we're going to activate its effect, pitching both Swanee and Chaiwan from our hand to the graveyard. With that, we're going to be able to special summon Zephranu and Polo. Keep in mind, do not special summon Chaiwan or Bayan to your side of the field using this effect, or the combo won't work as efficiently. Next, you'll Synchro summon into Boxia, and provided that you went first, you will probably not want to activate its effect to spin any cards from the field to the deck. You're going to activate Boxia's effect targeting Pulo and then targeting Chaiwan, destroying Pulo and special summon Chaiwan. Pulo's effect is going to activate and then special summon Bayan to the field. Next, you're going to Synchro summon going into Herald of Arclight. Now, keep in mind the Herald of Arclight cannot be destroyed by battle. While the Boxia is vulnerable to almost every card imaginable, it does have 2600 defense, something really hard for the opponent to get over. This lock is really pivotal for starting off the game because it essentially stops any of the opponent's good card effects, and then Boxia can constantly revive Herald of Arclight back to the field. Use this on any of your Yang Zing monsters, and then further your strategy by constantly special summoning monsters, as well as bringing out Herald of Arclight to your side of the field. The next combo that involves Jalti is going to be either Invincible Bills or Invincible Boxia. Now, by Invincible, I'm saying it's going to be pretty hard to stop these cards. It doesn't necessarily mean that these cards are impossible to stop. It's going to require Jiaotou and just 2 Yang Zing cards. So for this time, we're going to use Path and Buy-In. And yes, you can use Yang Zing spell and trap cards for Jiaotou's effect. We're going to pitch both Buy-In and Yang Zing Path to special summon Zasani and Bixie to our side of the field. Next, we're going to Synchro Summon N2 Bills, which will be 3,500 and unaffected by traps, or Boxia, which will be 2,800 attack, 3,100 defense, unaffected by traps, and can also spin 3 cards on the opponent's side of the field to the deck. Now, that's a really strong monster. The next combo we're going to talk about is the Unbreakable Yazi. Now, Unbreakable Yazi is really good for going against decks like Burning Abyss, decks that can't necessarily beat over monsters that have really strong attack and need to target to get over their threats. Again, it's going to require Jiaotou and any 2 Yang Zing cards. I'm going to use Double Chaiwen for this time around. We're going to pitch Double Chaiwen to special summon Bixie and Buy-In to our side of the field. And then next, we're going to Synchro Summon into our Unbreakable Yazi. Unbreakable Yazi cannot be destroyed by battle and it's unaffected by traps. So cards like Mirror Force won't work even if it doesn't target Yazi. Furthermore, Yazi can continue to destroy our cards, our monsters on the side of the field. Of course, they have to be Yang Zing, to destroy opponent's monsters, triggering off our Yang Zing monsters' effects. The next combo we're going to talk about is making Yazi just off of Jiaotou. Now, again, this is going to require 2 Yang Zing monsters in hand. We're going to pitch them both to the graveyard, and then we're going to special summon Bixie and Tawadi to our side of the fields. Next, we're going to use Tawadi and Jiaotou to special summon Yazi from our deck. Furthermore, we can use Yazi to target Bixie, destroy it, and destroy an opponent's monster. Bixie's effect will activate, more often than not, special summoning Swanee to our side of the field because it is a 1900 beater. Well, like I said, there are so many more combos with Yang Zings, but I'm pretty sure you guys are smart enough to figure them out on your own. Thank you guys so much for watching another segment of The Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.